next story, this involves Kyle Kulinski and Justice Democrats. There's one video. I want to start with the video in reference to Kyle reacting to the demise of Justice Democrats. That's how we're going to start off this conversation. And then we're going to backtrack a little bit, and we're going to go back to the very beginning of when Justice Democrats was created. There are some things that was actually sent my way recently that I was not aware of. And I think this may explain why things did not work out the way that they should have, right? So this is not a go after bash, Kyle kind of thing. There's certain things I want to point out, and I think it may explain why the squad is behaving the way that they are, why Bernie Sanders wiring money, campaign funds to his nonprofit, like all this stuff that has been happening over the past, I would say like actually the past 2 years, where we're like, they were fighting and pushing back when Trump was in office, but when Biden won, they just kind of, caved. I think we're going to have an explanation to that now. So I want to begin with this video from Kyle where he talks about the demise of Justice Democrats. And right off the bat, from the beginning of the video, there's something that he said that really made me realize what Justice Democrats was really supposed to do and why it was really created. Now, we were told that Justice Democrats was formed to basically take on the establishment Democrats in the party and to create more of a reformist Democratic Party, so to speak. But is that really the case? Let's dive into this video here because I want to show you something. There's something he said here that made me realize I don't think that was actually, that may have been his intention, but I don't think that's actually what it was really about. Listen to this.
So a big story dropped last week about Justice Democrats that I wanted to share with you and give you guys my take on it. So Huffington Post has this long article by Daniel Marans, who, by the way, does a phenomenal job with his reporting. I feel like this was very detailed. And the title here is, "A Progressive Powerhouse's Surprise Layoffs Fuel Concerns About the Left's Future. Justice Democrats played a critical role in electing the squad. Now it will have to do more with less." Okay, so they actually bring me up in this piece and, some of my criticisms against Justice Democrats. And like I said, very long article, very detailed. Do yourself a favor and go read the entire thing. But I'll sum it up for you here, and then I'll give you guys my take on it. So basically, what they say is this. Justice Democrats, and you guys know the backstory. I'll give you a quick backstory just so, you remember all the details here. But in the wake of the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton, of course, lost to Donald Trump. And I was just disgusted and furious that a guy like Donald Trump could get anywhere near the White House. And I viewed
Hold on to that piece.
That as a colossal failing of the Democratic Party to not be able to beat the most beatable opponent in history because you're just coming across as that disconnected from average people. And so, I got together with Cenk Uygur and Shoykat Chakrabarti and Corbin Trent and some others, and we decided we need to change the course of the Democratic Party and try to make it so we get representatives who stand for something, who will fight for the American people, and make it so that the Republicans are an afterthought and they lose all the time because we are representing the people so well.
Okay. So that piece right there, when he said that how he was disappointed by Trump winning, and I know a lot of us were, and then he said, all right, he got together with those people. There's some other people that were there that are not mentioned that I feel for whatever reason are just never mentioned. We're going to get into that tonight. And I'll tell you about why I think they're not mentioned. But they decided to start what ends up becoming Justice Democrats. Based on his statement right there, that tells me that he started Justice Democrats as kind of like a response to Donald Trump to prevent anyone like Donald Trump or someone with that type of rhetoric from getting into the White House again. The way that Justice Democrats was sold was to reform the Democratic Party. But if you notice what Kyle just said there, he didn't say that he started Justice Democrats as a response to Barack Obama's presidency. That would be the Democratic Party, right? It was because Donald Trump won. Now, why is this important? This is important because when the squad first won that first round that got in, remember, they were very vocal. Rashida Tlaib said, we're going to impeach that mofo. AOC was protesting outside of Nancy Pelosi's office. Remember that? They were very vocal during that time. But if what Kyle says is true, that this was a response to Donald Trump winning, then it makes sense that the squad would be very vocal against Donald Trump. But there didn't seem to be a plan to make the squad vocal against the establishment in the Democratic Party. And I really believe that's part of the reason why you do not see them push back against Biden or Hakeem Jeffries or any of the other Democrat leaders. This came about out of his frustration for Donald Trump winning. That being said, the Justice Democrats, at the end of the day, were always going to end up protecting the Democratic Party, even the establishment of the Democratic Party, to prevent a Trump-like figure from getting into the White House again. Does this all make sense? And I believe that's how we got to where we are now, by the way. Let's continue.
And, you know, for me, a big inspiration about it was FDR. You know, like when you go back and read the history of FDR's time in office, it's astonishing. It's something we've never seen in the modern era. It's somebody won the presidential election 4 times. This is before there were term limits. In fact, the Republicans looked at that and said, we need to do term limits because we'll never be able to beat these guys because they're too good. So he won the presidential election 4 times. And he also, at one point, held 80% of the House and 80% of the Senate. So just crushing majorities. Why? Because he delivered with the New Deal. And people said, oh, you help me, I will vote for you.
He delivered with the New Deal because the people rose up and pushed him, though. That's the piece. That's the other piece that's missing from Justice Democrats. The people on the outside, those politicians, once they won, they never connected again with the outside activists to push back against the establishment Democrats. It's not like FDR just woke up one day and said, I think I'm going to help the people. No, the people pushed FDR and said, you better help us. That was the difference.
And so we decided we need to fight back against the corporate Democrats and make the Democratic Party uncorrupted. And so the original working name for Justice Democrats was actually the Left Tea Party. And then after that, there was some disagreement around that one. And, you know, because it sounds like you're being more right-wing than left-wing. So there's arguments on both sides. I understand that. But the whole idea was, let's have a Democratic faction which fights like the Tea Party fights Republican leadership. We want Democrats to fight Democratic leadership to go in a more progressive direction and represent the American people. And then, so the second name, I believe we were toying with New Deal Democrats. Again, that's the ode to FDR. Then I think eventually we went to Justice Party Democrats, and then we settled on Justice Democrats. So anyway, we started the group. You know, I was on the board, as was Cenk. We never took a penny for doing any of this because we just wanted to do the right thing for the country. This wasn't about us personally. And
we're going to pause here for just a second. There's another thing I want to add. What was really interesting to me in reference to Justice Democrats is that we're always told that the co-founders were Kyle and Cenk, right? And he mentioned Chhabari as well. But there's someone who was actually a really key player who also describes theirself as a co-founder. We're going to get into this in just a second because I had never, ever heard of this guy until yesterday when the information was sent to me. And with a little bit of digging and a little bit of research, I think I know why this person is not mentioned as one of the co-founders. We'll get into that in a second, but we're painting a picture here because I want you to see why I think the Justice Democrats ended up kind of selling out. So let me let him continue.
We were involved in every single board meeting. You know, I wrote the platform for it. You had Shoykot and Corbin brought in all these candidates, and we punched way above our weight for the amount of money we were able to raise. But at the time, it was all small dollar donations. It was you guys donating, and we punched way above our weight. We got AOC to get rid of Joe Crowley. You know, there's a number of Justice Democrats who are there now, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, the list goes on and on. You guys know the deal. So here we are today, and what they say in this article is they're laying off 9 of their 20 staffers. Donations have dried up for Justice Democrats. Now, Marans also goes on to point out, well, it also dried up for Planned Parenthood, the Sierra Club. Like, this is sort of across the board. There are donations drying up. The Sunrise Movement, of course, also laid off 35 of their 100 staffers. They point out in the piece 62% of Justice Dems donations are small dollar donations. And the head of Justice Democrats, Alexandra Rojas, you know, she takes very little pay compared to other people who are in a similar position and running a political group like this. She gets paid.
Let me hold on for a second. 2 things. So Alexandra Rojas, remember, she was the one that actually was pro Neera Tanden. Remember that conversation? And everybody was upset because they said, why are Justice Democrats promoting Neera Tanden? Just keep that in mind. So that shows you where she was going. And this was over a year ago. So that shows you exactly where she was headed. And 2, in reference to the small dollar donations, if small dollar donations have dried up, that's because the working class doesn't want to support this grift anymore. Small dollar donations are usually coming from working class people, maybe some middle class people, but those people decided we're not supporting this anymore. If I have to choose between donating money to Justice Democrats and paying for something else, I'm going to not donate to Justice Democrats because they're not fulfilling their promises and they've sold out to Democrat establishment. So what that means is that the working class is seeing through it.
$81,000 a year. And they just couldn't dot the I's and cross the T's and pay the bills. And so they were effectively sort of forced to lay off 9 of their 20 members.
Kyle doesn't say that. Notice how what I just told you, and notice what he leaves out. Notice how Kyle leaves out that people aren't donating to them anymore, those small dollar donations.
He also goes on to say there's now dark money groups that are affiliated with the establishment Democrats who are spending big to beat JD candidates. We saw this with AIPAC and AIPAC-related groups and other groups who are like anything to defeat people who are even mildly more progressive than the establishment Democrats. And this cycle now, Justice Democrats is saying, we're only going to defend our incumbents. We're not.
You hear that? Listen to this. Hold on, let's go back a little bit.
Or even mildly more progressive than the establishment Democrats. And this cycle now, Justice Democrats is saying, we're only going to defend our incumbents. We're not going to support, upstarts in primaries to take out very conservative Democrats.
What does that tell you about the direction of Justice Democrats? They're only going to support the people who already made it in, which means that the future for Justice Democrats is not to produce more squads. So much for reforming the Democratic Party, right?
And that's where we are now. So they're trying to defend Jamal Bowman. Again, they have 0 people who are primarying conservative Democrats at this point in time. And they're just sort of slowly but surely going away or having less and less of an impact. So,
bingo. So Kyle Kulinski admits it. Justice Democrats is slowly going away, having less of an impact. One of the things that I think hurt that organization was when Kyle and Jink both stepped down. I forget the order, but if I remember correctly, one of them was asked to leave, and then the other one apparently stepped down within solidarity kind of thing. I think anytime you have those people who were there from the very beginning of the organization, when they walk away from it, well, then it just leaves the organization in hands of people who may have other desires and other needs. And sometimes that desire could be more money, more notoriety, more fame. And I think that was one of the mistakes that happened. But the point that I wanted to point out in this particular clip is that he tells you right from the jump that he did this as a response to Donald Trump. So again, they're going to have that energy when it comes to fighting against conservatives. You see them do this on Twitter as well. They're very strong and loud about pushing back against conservatives. But for the most part, when it comes to the Dem establishment, they cower. They vote along with them and for legislation that they should not approve based on the principles of Justice Democrats that they pledge to commit to. So the whole reform thing, if it was going to be successful, it actually would have been more successful if Justice Democrats was probably started during a time when a Democrat president was in office. Like if Justice Democrats was started under Obama, or if Justice Democrats was started right now under Joe Biden. Think about it. Then it's very clear you're pushing back against the Democrat establishment. But it's very easy to be loud and vocal and to appear to be left when the person sitting in the White House is a Republican. So these are some of the things we got to think about. I'll let him go on for a little bit more, and then we're going to take a walk back in time, and I'm going to show you something else.
I want to give you some more what they say in here. They say there are no big donors on the left like there are on the right, and that's part of the problem is that, you know, when small donors aren't giving and you don't have any larger donors, then what do? And so they go.
But they did have larger donors. That's the thing. When I talk to people who previously worked with Justice Democrats after Kyle and Jink were gone, they did eventually start getting larger donors, though. So what happened to those large donors?
Go on to say, quote, a senior House progressive aide conceded that Justice Democrats' aligned incumbents lacked cohesiveness and did not have regular group meetings with Justice Democrats. Though how much of that was due to the operation's limited funding is unclear. Other than some Israel bills, we never talked about legislation, the senior aide said. There's a perspective that people with JD win their race and come to Congress and do their own thing.
See?
Okay, so what went wrong here and what should they do? I mean, look, to me, the biggest thing is this. They lost their identity, right? And as a co-founder of the group, I can tell you, the whole idea was you're outsiders, you're uncorrupted, you don't take corporate PAC money, you don't take billionaire money, you raise through small dollar donations, and you guys are crusaders to end the corruption, to get a higher minimum wage, to get universal health care, to get strong unions, to fight on left policy and represent the American people. And you're supposed to be that Tea Party of the Democratic side and take on Democratic leadership who's complacent and super neoliberal. People like Nancy Pelosi, for example, who raise a tremendous amount of money from big donors and corporations, and then you could see it's reflected in the policies that they push. They always want to split the difference and, you know, help out their corporate donors while like mildly tweaking things and moving in an okay direction for the average person. We wanted to put an end to that because we feel like it's that weakness that helped bring us Trump. And so from my perspective, look, I think they lost their identity and I think they lost their mission and they don't know if they're outsiders or just a regular Democratic group. And at this
No, I think they know exactly who they are, Kyle. I think they know exactly who they are. Now, I will say this loss of keeping in touch with them once they got into Congress for Justice Democrats just to kind of fall off and be like, okay, now you're on your own. That was also a mistake of the organization. That shouldn't have happened. But I think, you know, Kyle, it has to be pretty cringe for him to admit this because, again, he was a part of this from the very beginning. But the thing is, I think they know exactly who they are. And I think that they've been told, as we know from Nina Turner, when she admitted that they were threatened not to support her campaign. I think that they were told right from the jump, no, don't you even try to push back against Democrat leadership. Cynthia McKinney explained this very well when I interviewed her last year. She said that they told her early on, too, when she was in Congress, we do not go against Democrat leadership. So I think that's what's really, really happening here. And I think it's probably hard for Kyle to admit that. But the thing is they know exactly who they are. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're trying to keep their seat.
Point to look a hell of a lot more like a regular Democratic group. And that explains why a lot of small dollar donations have dried up. And so there's a laundry list of things we can get into that you can partly blame for the downfall of the group. But I think the core of it is what I just described. And look, I can speak to this in a pretty authoritative position because I was a co-founder of the group. I know what the mission was. But apparently, you know, under the leadership now, and Cenk and I have been affiliated with the group for a very long time, but like under the leadership now, I don't think they have that same mission. I don't think their goal is, we're going to be incredibly organized, we're going to be incredibly cohesive, we're going to work together, we're going to strategize, and we're going to push democratic leadership, and we're going to make a lot of noise, and we're going to drag the conversation towards, we're not bending on something like increasing the minimum wage. This is like an 80% issue in the country, and we're going to make a lot of noise, and we're going to fight on it. We're going to draw a red line, and we're going to use our political capital. You know?
But according to Cori Bush, remember what she said, when they go to vote, they vote alone. They're not voting as a squad. They're not voting as Justice Democrats. When they go to vote on legislation, they're voting alone. That was Cori Bush's statement.
Oh, and I mean, I think that's the problem. And I think if people saw a fight from Justice Democrats, if people saw a group that was working together in a cohesive sense, then I think they would donate more. I mean, so we're seeing a little glimpse of this recently. Bernie's holding up Biden appointments, and he's telling Biden, you better lower the cost of prescription drugs, because Biden has the authority to do that on his own. He's saying, you better lower the cost of prescription drugs, or I'm just going to keep blocking this person. Okay, what if, instead of just Bernie, what if it was a group of like 18 Democrats in the House? And especially back when you had a Democratic majority, you absolutely could throw your weight around and try to impact change. And then,
but they know this, Kyle. I'm sorry. They know that. Like, this is not something I think that needs to be explained to them. They are well aware of what they could do with the leverage that they have. These are all grown ass people. Like, let's be real. Okay. And Bernie Sanders out here taking campaign money and wiring it to his nonprofit. So he might not be the best person to point to right now either. I'll just keep that clear. Now, let's go back to the beginning. We're going to go back to the beginning when it was announced that there was going to be the Justice Democrats. And there's a couple of things I want to point out from this video compared to now. Let's go ahead and dive in. This is the Humanist Report sharing the announcement from Secular Talk.
The Young Turks and Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk have teamed up with veterans of Bernie Sanders' campaign to launch a new initiative to take over the Democratic Party once and for all. So it's called Justice Democrats, and this is something that I am overwhelmingly excited about. Now, the first question, before we even get to what Justice Democrats are, is why even bother with the Democratic Party? Because I talk about how the Democratic Party is a lost cause and how they're rotten to the core, so why not just start a new party? Why not take all of the resources that Justice Democrats can raise and funnel this towards creating a brand new party that we're in control of? Well, I'll let Kyle Kulinski explain why that might not be the best strategy.
And all of the institutional biases against third parties are so immensely strong that we're effectively handicapping ourselves if we go into it trying to do a third party.
But one of the principles of Justice Democrats was to make third party and independent candidates more viable. That's one of the principles. Look this up, Google it. I've shown it on the show multiple times. I feel like I don't need to show it again. But that's one of the principles that was listed there, was to make that more viable. That piece, that core principle from the organization, that piece never happened. I don't even want to say like it started. It never happened, period. And that's why we're kind of in the spot that we are now, because it's like in the situations where they have failed, if that would have been done, we'd have those third party and those independent candidates. And I'm going to show you another clip as well to show you what the audience wanted, because that's important for people to go back and see, what did the audience actually ask for?
It's like taking a sledgehammer, swinging it at your kneecap, and then saying, okay, now it's time to go run that marathon you spoke about. Well, if I'm going to run the marathon, I should be in tip-top shape now, shouldn't I? I should give myself the best possible chance, not the worst chance. So, for example, the Green Party, who I absolutely love, they've had some successes here and there, but by and large, they are not what's viewed as a viable third party. And again, it's not their fault. It's the fault of the institutional biases against them and against third parties in general. But
And he's referring to the national level. On the local level, Green Party candidates have won and still continue to win. And that's another mistake, I think, with Justice Democrats, is that there was too much focus on the national level and not the local level. You need to have all those bases covered, right? So instead of just focusing on candidates running for Congress or trying to take over the House, as they put it, why weren't they also at the same time, like simultaneously, focusing on candidates to win mayor races or these gubernatorial races, city council? That way you're fighting on all fronts. Let's continue.
If you're a member of the Green Party and you're a member of the Democratic Socialists, let me tell you right now, you are our allies. I view you as our allies. So I don't want people to take it the wrong way. I need them to understand exactly where we're coming from. And if you read the platform of the Justice Democrats, we specifically refer to reforms that we favor that would help third parties and remove some of those institutional biases. But based on our calculations, our highest chance of winning and actually getting the policies we want implemented is to take over the Democratic Party.
How's that working out in reference to implementing policies, guys? On the national level, how's that work out? $15 minimum wage didn't happen. Still don't have Medicare for all. This is why it was important to fight on all fronts, not just the national level. So let me let him continue here.
So in my opinion, I think Kyle's logic here is absolutely sound. And I've kind of made similar arguments here. I've stated that, yes, unfortunately, we have to begrudgingly work within the Democratic Party, but simultaneously try to build a viable third-party alternative, because unfortunately, with our two-party system, with our single-member district plurality, winner-take-all system, it's really difficult for a third party to gain prominence in the United States currently. So I agree that it's...
So he said simultaneously trying to create some type of a third party. Again, that never happened. And even though, like, you listen to the rhetoric then and you listen to the rhetoric now, it's like, you know, what was his comment in reference to Cornel West deciding to run third party? Oh, Mike was against it. So what happened? Something changed. Something changed. And I want to show you what the audience said. This was Mike's own audience. He had a poll. Should progressives pursue Justice Democrats, draft Bernie, or go green? Let me show you what the viewers said. This is important, I think.
Even though it's the case that progressives might be on the same page when it comes to policy substance, when it comes to strategy, I've seen considerable disagreement among the progressive community. So, case in point, if we're talking about,
Pause. That part right there, let's say this again. This part's important because for people who come after RBN, listen to this.
Even though it's the case that progressives might be on the same page when it comes to policy substance, when it comes to strategy, I've seen considerable disagreement among the progressive community. So
even back then, when it came to strategy, there were disagreements. So when people come after us at RBN and say, oh, you guys are ridiculous because you don't like the strategy. Your idea is stupid. It's a dumb da-da-da. This is not a new thing. Even back then at the start of Justice Democrats, there was disagreement in reference to strategy. And I'm going to let him show you the poll.
Case in point, if we're talking about, reforming the Democratic Party and taking over the Democratic Party, people will often argue, it's rotten to the core. You can't really do that. It's impossible. It's the party that's the problem. But if you talk about creating a third party, even if that party isn't necessarily politically viable or electorally viable, at least, even if we're using it as leverage, people will counter with the argument that that's just not something that's feasible with our current electoral system. And if you want a third party or more political parties, you've got to get electoral reform. And I think that both arguments are absolutely persuasive. Both sides have points that are really important. And this is why I've been someone who believes in the kitchen sink approach, where you kind of take all the strategies, throw them at the wall, and see what sticks. So
that never happened.
I don't want people to think that they're forced to choose one strategy over the other. I want you to know that you can support reforming and taking over the Democratic Party while simultaneously trying to build up a viable Green Party or Third Party or People's Party.
That never happened. That's the problem.
So what I decided to do to kind of gauge where progressives are at is I took to Patreon to poll my viewers with the question, going forward, which of the following strategies should we employ to get progressive policies codified into law? And 56% agree that we need a multifaceted approach. So in total, 21% think that we should try to reform or take over the Democratic Party, with the likes of Justice Democrats.
Pausing right here. I want you to have a chance to look at this poll. 20% said reform the party. 6% said build up the Green Party. 18% said start a new People's Party, hashtag draft Bernie. Remember, this is going back to the day when Nick Brana tried to do that whole draft Bernie thing, right? But what do the majority of the viewers say? The majority of the viewers said all of the above. 55% of the viewers said all of those things should happen. And the problem is, so basically, they went against what the viewers actually wanted and decided to focus on just reforming the Democratic Party. None of those other things were even touched. Building on the Green Party, they didn't do it. Start a new People's Party, that was Nick Brana, and that's different from what they were talking about at that point in time. The People's Party is a populist party. They were talking about a progressive thing. Anyway, the point is they wanted you to do all three, which included third parties. This just reminds me of when TYT didn't listen to their own audience. Their own audience was telling them, yes, force the vote for Medicare for all, and they went against what their own viewers wanted.
And brand new Congress. 7% think we should build up the Green Party. 17% thinks we should start a new People's Party with the draft Bernie movement. And 56% think we should try to do all of those things at once. And once again, with this poll, I am in complete agreement. So getting to some of the comments, Jason King makes the point that the Democrats poll worse than Trump overall. Democrat is now a toxic brand and will hurt any chance of a progressive winning an election. Progressives need to team up with Nick Brana and push for a progressive party.
You see that? Like I told you, this didn't happen. This didn't happen. They said, now we have our criticisms of Nick Brana today, but it says progressives need to team up with Nick Brana and push for a progressive party. When we talk about the founders of the Justice Democrats, oftentimes, again, it's Kyle and Jink. What about Zach? What about Zach Exley? You ever hear about this guy? Zach Exley, here's a picture of him here. This guy, let's scroll down here. I'm going to show you something. Let me highlight it so you can see. Politico reported in August 2015 that Exley had joined the 2016 Bernie Sanders presidential campaign as a senior advisor responsible for digital communications. He co-founded the Justice Democrats and Brand New Congress. Do you know Zach? Let me show you again. Here's his picture. How come you don't hear about this guy? How come you don't hear about, when we talk about Justice Democrats and they talk about the co-founders, it's always people say Kyle and Jink. How come you never hear them say Zach Exley? And if Zach Exley co-founded Brand New Congress, why was he also a co-founder for Justice Democrats? Those are two different things. You have to remember Ro Khanna and Pramila Jayapal came from Brand New Congress. Now, they're on the Justice Democrats website, but they didn't start at Justice Democrats. They came from Brand New Congress. And then when Justice Dems and Brand New Congress kind of merged together, that's how they became a Justice Democrat. Nightwolf said, Zach, who is he? You're going to find out. You ever see this guy? Look at his face. Take a good look at him. Have you seen this guy? No? Okay. Well, let's see a little bit more about Zach. I think I know why Zach is not mentioned. So even on Zach's website, just in case you don't trust Wikipedia, just in case you don't trust Wikipedia, this is Zach's website. Listen to this. Before I co-founded Justice Democrats and Brand New Congress, campaigns to replace every corrupt and complicit member of U.S. Congress with a slate of honest and visionary local leaders, they made a beautiful movie about us that you can watch on YouTube or Netflix. They made a movie about, but you never heard of this guy. I think I know why. Zach was connected in some weird spaces. Because you see, going back to this article, open letter, anti-Trump super PAC launching. Let's go down here. Just going to go right to the names. Though the PAC isn't revealing its funding as of now, Not Who We Are is drawing on purpose, which leverages technology towards social change efforts. Purpose Chief Technology Officer Josh Hindler will be the PAC's campaign manager. The group is also picking 5 of the 8 younger Bernie Sanders digital staffers who bolted his Our Revolution group 2 weeks ago after the senator brought back his campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, to run it. Let's highlight the names. These people will be important in just a second. I'm going to show you. Here's the people: Hector Segala, Kenneth Pennington, Zach Exley, Jose Martinez Diaz, and Aiden King. Livera, a former press aide to the Democratic National Committee and the New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, is running communications for the PAC. Pay attention to the first 3 names: Hector Segala, Kenneth Pennington, and once again, there's Mr. Zach. Now, this was in response again to Trump. Pay attention, folks. Open letter, anti-Trump super PAC launching. And go back to what I just told you about the first video that we talked about with Kyle, saying he started Justice Dems because of the frustration with Trump winning. So it was a response to Donald Trump. Now, those names, one more time: Hector Segala, Kenneth Pennington, and Zach Exley. These names also appear for a company called Middle Seat, which is a consulting company. I reported about this a year ago. I'm going to show you a clip from that. Middle Seat is a consulting company, but it was revealed over a year ago that they actually were the middleman between progressive Justice Democrats campaigns and establishment Democrat campaigns like Beto O'Rourke. Let's see those names again, because they are also a part of Middle Seat. Let's scroll down. Watch. I told you, you got to make these connections, man. This is all a fucking sham. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't. Hector Segala right here. There's Hector Segala. Right there. You see him? Right next to Hector is Kenneth Pennington. He's the one on the little scooter here. That's him right there rolling towards you. There's Kenneth Pennington. And I forgot the other one. Hold on. Oh, and Zach. I forgot where I found Zach. Let's see if Zach is still on here, because he was one of them too. We're going to do a control. Zach's on the other one. Do you see these guys? Okay. So again, these guys are connected. Hector Segalia, Kenneth Pennington are also a part of Middle Seat. About. We believe real change is possible. We are not cookie cutter DC consultants. We're not in this for cocktail parties or the connections. We're here for the movement. Middle Seat is a team of writers, designers, coders, and strategists passionate about making real change. Is that true? I don't think so. Oh, I thought I had a timestamp for this. No? Let me go to the timestamp. Hold on. Oh, I know where it's at. Who is Middle Seat? I covered this over a year ago. Let's scroll right to that part right there. Making sure I'm starting right at the chart. Okay. Paula Jean Swearigan let the cat out the bag. Zeneb wrote the article. Follow the money and you'll find out. This is disgusting. Small dollar donors' money took a middle seat to democracy and made these people rich. Listen to this. Again, for those just joining, I covered this a year ago. Listen. Oh, boy. It's all coming out now, folks. It is all coming out now. Now, this is from MPP broke this. I know MPP has its issues, but that doesn't dispute what was discovered here. This is Middle Seat, ladies and gentlemen. You may not be familiar with Middle Seat. So let me read this, and then you'll understand why this is a problem. The AOC Beto Biden 48 million connection, Middle Seat. Going to scroll down. Let me go ahead and make this larger for you because this text is tiny. Oh, I like that. Middle Seat's founders are no strangers to progressive messaging. Founders Zach Exley, Kenneth Pennington, and Hector Segala. There's those names again. What do you know? The same guy, Zach Exley, co-founder of Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats, also teamed up with these same buddy bros of his to found Middle Seat. All previously held roles on Bernie Sanders' 2016 presidential campaign. Kenneth Pennington and Hector Segala went on to work a short stint with Our Revolution following Sanders' campaign before founding Middle Seat. Middle Seat, like many other political contractors, often have a heavy influence on what their clients are presenting to the public. Their suite of services includes social media, texting, web design, advertising, organizing, and even campaign strategy. Noting on their website that they work with campaigns and organizations to build and grow their impact in the progressive space. The firm is very close with Justice Democrats, having been formed in conjunction with each other by some of the same people and essentially serving as the for-profit wing of the pack. The Justice Democrats' connection to Middle East run deep, considering Zach Exley was also a founder of Justice Democrats in Brand New Congress. There you go. Together, both organizations have established a recruitment pipeline where Justice Democrats find candidates and set them up with Middle Seat, which moderates their message and aligns it with the Democratic Party establishment while making millions and keeping their influence invisible to the public and the movement. You are not supposed to even know who they are. And they like it that way. I'm going to fast forward a little bit so we go to the chart, because the chart is where you get to see the dollar amounts. So let me fast forward. This was a long clip. Oh, here we go. Right about here. Yeah. Now, somebody explain to me why
is Beto O'Rourke in the same table as these Justice Democrats? Somebody explain this to me. Why are they a part of the same system? AOC, Ro Khanna, Justice Democrats PAC, Jamal Bowman, Squad Victory Fund, Ayanna Pressley and affiliated PACs, Pramila Jayapal, Alex Morse, what I am incredibly shocked by him. Middle seats total revenue. Here we go. Guys, this goes through 2021. So this includes Justice.
Look at the dates too, guys. 2017 to 2021.
Democrats candidates who ran and who won in 2018 and the ones who won in 2020. You cannot be progressive and be connected to an organization that is moving you to the right.
You guys see what's happening now? And what have they been doing when they vote? They've been moving to the right. There's more.
You cannot be progressive and be connected to an organization that is also working with Beto, Charles Booker, Katie Porter, and Joe Biden. Why is Joe Biden on here? Where is all this money go? I told you guys a while back on the show with Rob, I told you Justice Democrats had dark money too. I mentioned the money that came from George Soros, which, by the way, George Soros also gives money to the Sunrise Movement.
There's also on this list the Working Families Party, the Action PAC, Real Justice PAC, and Move On. So let me fast forward a little bit because there's another piece. Yeah. I'll show you because they had it on their website. Watch this. I'm going to show you how they were all connected to Joe Biden and why they support Joe Biden. Watch this.
Middle seat, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to the messaging they have here. The digital firm for progressive causes and candidates. We support campaigns, organizations, and causes fighting for racial justice, climate action, immigrant rights, intersectional feminism. Oh, they're coming with the buzzwords. Economic justice and more. Sounds good, right? Middle Seat is a full service media and fundraising firm for progressive causes and candidates. Our work includes advertising, fundraising. Here we go. Fundraising. What I tell you? Development, creative, organizing, and strategy. Our work. So I scrolled down and I said, well, let me check out the work. The first person I see is Ayanna Pressley. That makes sense. They say they support progressive candidates. Ayanna Pressley is on here. She's a progressive politician. That makes sense.
Wait for the next one.
Right? But then I scrolled down further. And I'm going to say this in my grandmother's voice, the way that my grandma would say this. How would my grandma say this? Rest in peace, Grandma. If she saw this, she would say, well, why in the hell is Joe Biden on the progressive site?
You guys see what's happening here? They're all on this together. This is why I said in reference to that Kyle video, they're grown ass people. They know exactly what they're doing. Some of you may have never even heard of Middle Seat until tonight, unless you were with me last year and you saw this last year. But some of this money, and I'll show you here too. There's all the stuff for Biden. They had all this on their website. Look, they're supposed to be for the progressives, right? Look what they had on the website. They were like promoting Joe Biden. And then what I want to show you again with this chart, and I wish I still had that article, but you can watch the video and hear the whole thing. I just don't want to bore you to death. But what you notice with this chart is if we go back up to the top, basically what they end up telling you is, Aneb ends up explaining in this article, chances are if you donated to some of those progressive, Middle Seat acting kind of as that middleman there, some of that money went to people like Beto O'Rourke and Joe Biden. And it was done through Middle Seat. Excuse me. It was done through Middle Seat. So they take that money. They say, you put your money in middle seat, and then middle seat take that money and they funnel it into the Biden campaign. All these people are connected. And I honestly believe this is why you don't hear much about Zach Exley, co-founder of Justice Democrats. You notice they never say this man's name? More receipts. This is from the FEC. Look, we're going from 2015 to 2024. Look at this. Spender, Bowman. So we got Jamal Bowman, McClellan, Katie Porter, Fetterman, Pramila, Summer Lee, Ayanna Presley, and then the names start to repeat. Look at this. Jamal Bowman, Spender, recipient, middle seat, $2,500. Guys, they can't deny this if they want to. This is all on the FEC. McClellan, middle seat, $75. That one's not as crazy. Look at this. Katie Porter, $35,000. John Fetterman, $25,000. All to middle seat, guys. Pramila Jayapal, $5,000. Summer Lee for Congress, $5,500. Ayanna Presley, over $10,000. And if I sorted from amount, Beto, $3 million. I told you all of them are connected through middle seat. Honey, let me tell you, this is a mess. Look at all this money. Fetterman, $500,000, middle seat consulting. That's what went wrong with Justice Democrats. Money. That's what went wrong. And I show you this again because this go to show you if they're both a part of the same consulting firm here, and they're both regressives and the establishment Democrats, the money coming into middle seat and some of the money that was donated to Jamal Bowman or AOC going towards Joe Biden or Beto O'Rourke, that means to tell you they were never going to fight against the establishment Democrats. I hope that answers the question for everybody. And I hope now you know who Zach Exley is. Because you don't see this guy's face. And in a sense, it almost seemed like Jink and Kyle were the media people. So you got the consultants, you have Zach, and you have Hector and Kenneth. You got the consultants. And then now you need the media people to come in to give it an audience. And that's where you got Kyle and Jink. Now, I don't know if they knew about all of this. They may not have known at the very beginning. I don't know. I don't have receipts that say that they did. But to answer Kyle's question, this is what happened. Money happened. If you haven't had a chance to do so, make sure you go ahead and answer the poll. And I'm going to go to the comments and then I'll do the poll and we'll get to the Jimmy story. Monarch says, so basically Justice Democrats are anti-MAGA Democrats. Basically. There was never really going to be, whether Kyle and Jink wanted that or not, there was never going to be any real push against the Dem establishment. The money shows you that. Delthea said, and FDR had a Congress that came with him that was peopled with many members more leftist than him and more beholding to leftist organizations than they were to right-wing donors. Bingo. Thank you for the super chat, Colin. That aligns with what Rojas said at the Squad Victory event I went to. She told the audience to give money to keep the Squad members in office. No mention of growing the Squad. There you go. There you go. That's why when people make the argument, if we just get more of them in, they're not trying to get no more in. Thank you for the super chat, DC. Justice Democrats is literally a corporate PAC. Whoever says money, well, there's your problem. And Queen says, I am no longer donating to any of these thieves. Yeah, this is why I don't, after Bernie and the squad, like, I do not donate to politicians. I can't. Sorry. I'll take the comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip, Roger. Regarding it would have been better if they formed under a Dem president. There's no way a party would do that, because just like they chose to do it under a GOP president, the Tea Party did the same thing. This is the problem with parties. Their very existence caused compromise, which is why we must cast them into the irrelevancy by getting registered independent past 50% and run CBIs as amendments to abolish. And thank you for this tip as well. Kyle and Jink's first mistake was letting their pride get in the way because they did not want to give Dor a win, not to mention they had too much emotion and energy invested in making this work. Second mistake was not listening to us, the base, when we were warning them. In the waning days of me watching TYT, I super chatted Jink, why not run California CBIs? To so many words, he said, I hear you, but we're not. But we're going, I think you mean we're not going that way. Oh, we're going that way. Yeah. Yeah. Well. Let's go ahead and look at that poll and see how you guys voted in reference to this Justice Democrats question. There were 965 votes. Oh, 67, 65. Did someone vote and unvote? Oh, 69. Do you regret supporting Justice Democrats? 38% said yes. 8% said no. Woo, this is interesting. 52% said you didn't support them. Wow. This goes to show that I think, I don't know if like my audience is changing per se, but I'm starting to notice that when I first started this show, based on like the audience I had then versus now I'm starting to see there's more people that are part of this audience that did not actually support Justice Democrats. So that's interesting. That means I'm reaching different people. Hey, I wasn't finished. What happened? I was okay, sorry. 52% of you said that you did not support them and 2% said not sure. That is interesting. Thanks, guys.